There's been a lot of hype about this new movie, Jesus Revolution. And having just seen it, I'll tell you this, it lives up to all the hype. I'm so excited to tell you that Brent McCorkle is with us this morning on Spirit 1053. He's the co-director of Jesus Revolution. Man, I got to tell you, I stayed up past 11 last night and I get up at like 3:45 a.m. because I couldn't stop watching your movie on my laptop. Oh my word.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear it, man. We put a ton of love and care into this thing, man. We're just hoping it gets out to the people.
Oh, I'm telling the people, listen, you transported me back to the 70s. I only lived there a few years, but the cars, the colors, the music, how do you create a world like that?
Yeah, it was cool. I co-directed this with John Irwin, and John had just the most clever line that I stole and used a lot too. But one day he said, "I just wanted to feel like we dropped a camera into 1969," and that was really what we communicated to the entire team. And this is the time for me to brag on the cast and crew. I always say a movie is made; it's like a pirate ship, and you have to invite the right people onto your ship to make the ship go where you want it to do and to accomplish your objective. And this is by far the best cast and crew I ever had to work with. So yeah, to your point, I pulled a ton of reference, as did everybody in every department. And we just talked and said, what do we think we want this to look like? How hard do we want to push into some of the zanier elements of the 70s? We really wanted to look cool and feel very authentic. So we stayed away from a lot of the party city type things.
Yeah.
We minimized the tie dye, and if we did do bell bottoms, they were really, really cool looking, and we wanted it to feel like if you were there, it would feel modern and hip and cool, just like as if you were experiencing it for the first time. So yes, I appreciate you saying that. We curated all the locations and built sets, and the costume designer went to estate sales and bought fabrics that were actually created in the 60s to create some of the costumes. And so, yes, the level of care and detail that went into creating an authentic experience for the audience and transporting everybody back was really high, man. We worked really hard on it.
I mean, you did, and it was such an emotional journey. I felt like I was living life with these characters. I mean, the expressions on their faces, the tears, they seemed so real. What do the real people, Greg and Kathy Laurie, feel about seeing themselves portrayed on the big screen in such an authentic way?
Yeah, first of all the tears are real. I'm a very emotional creature. I'm very sensitive, and I love the chance to get people in touch with their own emotions, both with actors and also ultimately the audience. And so everything you see there is completely authentic to these actors and just their wonderful performances. Kathy and Greg were super happy with how it turned out. They were on set many, many days, and it was an honor to have them on set. I know that they loved how Anna Grace and Joe Courtney portrayed them, and they just felt like it was very authentic and true to what they experienced. We spent days interviewing them, doing deep dive research and hearing all the stories, and so much of the scenes came from anecdotes from Greg and Kathy.
What was your favorite real story or anecdote that you brought to life on the screen, Brent?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We did massive research. I read multiple books, watched a bunch of documentaries, and of course, we conducted real life interviews. But the story that I unearthed in my research, I knew it was going to be the best scene in the film. I know that's hard. I know it's kind of weird to say, but
No.
I knew it would be. But Chuck received massive opposition from his church leadership when he chose to start allowing the hippies to come to his tiny little ailing square conservative church. And in an act of defiance to his church leadership that was trying to push the hippies out, but also in the most beautiful Christ-like act of love, he washes the feet of the hippies as they're going into church, because the deacons were complaining that the hippies with their dirty feet were messing up the church carpet, and they wanted the hippies gone because it was messing up their carpet, which is so rough, man. It's so rough. But that's really what happened. And that's really what Chuck did. And we didn't make that up, but it was the most cinematic moment. I remember when I discovered it, I went to John Irwin. We worked in the same office, and I said, man, we could mess up every scene in this movie, but if we get this one right, it's going to hit people so hard. And I cry every time I see it, man. I've probably seen that thing. I've seen it hundreds of times now, but it gets me every time because I feel like at risk of stepping on some toes or causing an offense, and I don't mean to, but there's kind of cultural Christianity in the West or how the church acts. And then also on the way other side, I think at times is actually who Jesus was. So to see Chuck actually become this Christ-like figure that loves in this fierce way, even in opposition, that loves everyone and chooses to love people different than himself. It reaches me, man. It shakes me to my core every time I see it. And I never forget the first time I saw that scene. I was with a Lionsgate executive, and we both broke down. We both broke down and just shed a lot of tears. It was just a very moving experience seeing that scene cut together for the first time. My editor, John Puckett, did an amazing job. And that's by far my favorite. I mean, there's wonderful spots in the film, and I love the movie, but that's by far the one I carry with me as resonant and personally special for sure.
I was hoping that story was true. Honestly, I'm hoping so many of them are true, even the funny moments. But, what strikes me, Brent, is that here are people on the screen. You're portraying them understanding the love of Christ, coming to Christ, hungry for Christ. And there's this possibility that as it's unfolding on the screen, another revolution could start, even looking toward what's happening at Asbury University right now. Talk about the timing of that.
Oh, yeah. You can't make this stuff up. And, depending on your belief system, you could call it a coincidence. I don't think it is. I'm really fascinated to see what comes out of Asbury. I've always felt like, and again, at risk of stepping on some toes, I don't mean to, but I really feel like our movie, if we were going to spark revival, it has to be a callback to love. I'm tired of living in a world with so much hate and so much division.
Yep.
To the point of Paul said, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm a pastor's kid. I read the Bible when I was 18, but I'm really good at paraphrasing now. But Paul basically said there's the three greatest things that we know of in the universe are faith, hope, and love.
Yes.
But above all that is love. And if you really break that down, that's love above faith. And I think people mess that up. Well, they don't believe like me. They're on a different political spectrum than me. My kid choosing to smoke cigarettes, or my kid is choosing this certain lifestyle. I remember being in an interview with Kirk Franklin, and he said, your kid might choose to be an atheist. That's still your baby. You love that baby. Your kid may choose this. Your kid may choose that. That's still your kid. You love that kid. And I was like, man, that to me, it was just like the words of Jesus being spoken in a very relevant way. So above all of it is love. And if these revivals are calls back to love, I think our world's going to change in a very, very positive, fundamental way. But we have to get back to love. And I'm talking about people on every side of the political spectrum, the cancel culture, just the hatred, the screaming at each other in all caps. We're just at each other all the time. And This isn't the world I want to live in. And it doesn't reflect a faith that is being changed and actually yielding the fruits of the Spirit. So, yeah, man, I'm excited. I think it's very, very crazy that all this stuff is happening as our movie is coming out. And,
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
One of the things I wrote down is something the magazine writer in your movie said, speaking to what you just addressed as well. Our country is dark and divided, but in that tent, the one that Pastor Chuck Smith set up, there's hope. Yeah. I mean, I would love for you to talk about that. What did it feel like inside that tent when you were filming it?
Oh, it was magic. I had an incredible producer, Josh Walsh, who is you'd call him like an extras whisperer, but people would be like, man, there's no way you can get 2,000 extras. And he'll be like, watch me, and he had an amazing team of people that worked on extras. And so the people that were there wanted to be there. And it's long hours. You just sit there and, sometimes you can't get your phone out, and, people bring books. I mean, it's a very long, boring event for extras, but everybody that came wanted to be there. And we shot in the South, we shot in Alabama, and those extras, they were just happy to be there. They were happy to sit for 14 hours straight and just be a part of the story. And so that was always a powerful experience, just to feel the energy of this crowd that really wanted to be there and work with you. And so that was amazing. But beyond that, it's nuanced in our film. But Chuck our conservative little pastor, he decides to let the hippies in. But when the hippies do come in, they bring peace, love, freedom, and a
Yes.
lot of hope and hopefulness and kind of this bright-eyed, childlike wonder as it pertains to faith. And I think for Chuck, it was a return and it was an
Mm.
awakening back to first love. You know what I mean? And so
Yes.
I feel like they helped each other. And it's light in our movie. I mean, obviously, you see Chuck making good choices, but in the good choices that he made, he allowed some people into his church that breathed a fresh new wind of renewal into how going to church even felt. So, yeah, a lot of that was the vibe and the spirit that the kids brought in with him.
Wow.
And they were more excited to hear him preach, than the old people gone to church their whole life. It was so new to them, and they were so
Yes.
excited about even like having a Bible. They were just so excited about
Yes.
all of it, and that excitement was definitely palpable when we were shooting and working inside the tent as well.
Oh, it's so good. One of the things I really appreciated about this story and the way that it was portrayed is that it was absolutely messy, and how Jesus, meets us in our messes and in our failures. And he has this history of working through flawed people. So talk about that and just filming those failures and what it felt like on the other side.
Well, first of all, something really terrible happened kind of in the Christian timeline. But, when you had the Puritans and the Quakers hit, they really created this version of Christianity that you had to look good on the outside. To prove to everyone that you were going to heaven, you had to have this really strong moralist veneer, and you had to quote scripture all the time and, not do anything that would come across as less than perfect. And it was a very legalistic version of Christianity where, like, if you were a Christian, you had to be perfect on the outside. Well, that's not biblical. That's not right.
Right.
And if you look at like the heroes of the faith, if you look at the people in the Bible that other humans chose to write stories about, they're very messy, flawed, broken people. And beyond that, the young people of today, they know it's healthy to bring your flaws to the light and work on them spiritually. Like, they'll talk about their flaws. Like, look, hey, I'm having some anxiety today, or I'm angry at this person. I'm being catty with this person, or whatever. Like, they're good to bring up their flaws and talk about them. And if you aren't presenting yourself in the world in that way, you're just turning off an entire generation to Jesus, honestly, in my
Yes.
view. And so it was important for us to also have a return to that. This was John Irwin's strong theme in the movie, that you don't have to have it all together. You could have done really bad things in your past. But now, like, in such a cancel culture, it's like when you cancel somebody forever, there's no chance for any redemption, and like, that's not the biblical model either, man. You really want to see people have a redemption arc.
Yes.
And even the most horrible people in the world, you want to see those situations get redeemed. You want to see those situations turn around. You want to see those people actually find God,
Yes.
and go to the light, And so it seems to me that we're casting people out and, and not giving them a chance to come back around. And so I think the theme of being flawed and still having a spiritual life, still being able to find love, still actually being able to lead sometimes.
Yes.
I think it's very important. And I think it will resonate with the young people because they want authenticity. They want vulnerability. That's what I want.
Yes.
In my leaders, that's what actually, I'm going to sound like a jerk, but I demand that in my leaders.
I get that.
I do. I need that. If someone's going to lead me, I need to know that they'll be transparent and vulnerable with me and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, or this is what I struggled with in the past, and I see it in you, and I need you to do better, and here's some ways you can do better. But if you present yourself as like a Quaker or a Puritan, perfect on the outside, you're presenting in the world in the same way the Pharisees and the Sadducees presented, and those are the people Jesus was calling out constantly. You present as perfect on the outside, but inside you are a whitewashed tomb full of bones,
Couldn't agree more. And Jesus says, everybody will know you are my disciples if you love people. I mean, that to me is just so powerful. And this comes across so beautifully in this movie. Love, hope, faith, all of it. It's like they join hands and they're here to say, Jesus is real. This thing is real, and I love it so much. I have one more question before I let you go here. Kelsey Grammer has clearly been so touched by this film. He cried on Kelly and Ryan the other day on their morning show, and I'm wondering, What does that mean to you as the co-director?
Oh man, it was an overwhelming journey with Kelsey. I knew he would be funny. I knew he would bring this beautiful gravitas and be able to play Chuck in a really cool way. But we also inherited him at a very beautiful time spiritually. And if you guys look him up, he's had a really, really tough life. He's had some really tough stuff happen to him, and it's deepened him. But when he showed up on set, well, first of all, before he'd even seen the script or heard about this opportunity, he was with some friends one weekend, and they were lamenting the fact that they had done stuff that just really didn't have any substantial value in their body of work. And they made a pact together to try to do things of spiritual significance. They made that little pact. And the next morning when he woke up, Jesus Revolution was in his inbox as a script to read for him to consider. And he was like, okay. So he read it. And he is a person of faith, and he's like, wow, okay, yes, I'd say yes to this. Like before he even talked to his agent or anything, he just was like, yes. So that was an incredible story. But when we got him on set, the thing I didn't expect was, again, going back to the previous question, he was so transparent, so vulnerable, so authentic. His heart was wide open. He would have tears in between takes.
Oh.
And I walked over to John one time. I said, man, let's make sure, because I'm always, like I said, I really want people to have an emotional journey on the stuff that I work on. And I walked over to John. I was like, we've run this 8 times and we're going to run them out of gas. And Kelsey heard me. And he goes, no, man, I'm not going to run out of gas. Let's keep going. And I was like, whoa. But he had so much to give. He just came in completely open-hearted, take after take. He would have those tears. There are no fake tears in our movie. Like this, it's really people being that open emotionally to come to tears. And, it's a gift. It's a gift. But he moved me, man. I would try to be around him in between takes just because he had so much peace. And he really, this sounds crazy, but he really carries like the presence of God. I mean, it's really wild. And he's had a harder life than me. And he's a more peaceful person than me. And to see what he did spiritually in this movie that was so authentic and so real. I had him about 3 weeks ago. We were just putting the final little finishing touches on the movie, and I needed to record a line of audio with him, just re-record a line of audio. And he had tears in his eyes doing that line of audio. He was just so moved by this process and so moved by the film. And he loves Chuck, and you just see just that love. It's so effusive, coming out of him. He's a very loving human being. And he's been acting since before I was born. And, when you're younger like that and you're directing, it's a little intimidating, but he was just the kindest, most generous, humble dude I've ever worked with. And to see him get choked up on Kelly, it didn't surprise me at all. I was like, yeah, man, he just has really strong, overwhelming feelings about getting to portray Chuck in this movie. And it's just been beautiful to see him have this journey, with this movie. And also inside this journey, give us a gift with the portrayal of Chuck Smith, because it's just such a wonderful, wonderful role. His wife told him it's the best thing he's ever done. And I personally believe that as well.
Oh, Brent McCorkle, it is such a privilege and an honor having you on the show and to recommend this movie to every single person I know. God bless you and all of the people who worked on this project. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for talking to me about it, and I really appreciate it. It's been great to be with you.